So I've been doing database professionally now for not that long, really, about a year and a half or so. Before that, I worked as a web developer freelance for a couple of years. Prior to that, I was writing C++, graphics, and geometry type software before that. But yeah, it's definitely worth saying that I do a lot of development of database in the browser, and the web development skills are probably, I don't know, 60-70% of the work. I'm still messing around with CSS and making fonts bigger for the client, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I'll show you kind of a bit of background and show you some of the stuff that I've done, and also the tools that I use to start. I think I'm going to have to do it from here because I don't have a remote. So, I mean, so these slides, some of them I've kind of adapted it from another talk to a very general audience. So I'll whiz through this bit. I mean, you know, bar charts. I'm not going to ask you to use them. Pie charts, reports in those, I'm sure. Line graphs, scatter plots. I'm sure you're familiar with. Are there any others that you can think of that you use?
Heat maps.
Heat maps, yeah. They're pretty good. Anything else?
Word house.
Yeah, yeah.
Spider diagrams.
They're sort of like radio.
Yeah, that's
aren't they? Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so I think I wanted to put this up here just to sort of kind of show that data visualization really isn't anything new. And I mean, even this I don't think is particularly old. I think people have been representing data or numbers visually probably for, I don't know, probably thousands of years. I did a search on Google. I found, yeah, I mean, I think I found some older stuff I wasn't quite sure, so I didn't really want to put it up here. But this is quite a famous example. This is from 1805, and it's just tracking some countries. So I'm not sure what the value actually is, but it's just sort of kind of showing the rise and fall of nations over time. This, I think, is kind of the sort of state of play at the moment, kind of Excel charting, and yeah, it tends to be the ones I've showed you before, like the bar graph and pie charts and so on. And the stuff that I'm really going to be looking at tonight is this sort of thing. It's from the New York Times. I think we'll keep coming back to the New York Times because they're one of the people who are really sort of pushing this forward. They also employ Mike Bostock, who wrote the talk of the D3 as well. So they're kind of at the forefront. And just out of interest, who's seen the sort of the visualizations that the New York Times are producing? Who's kind of yeah. And yeah, we'll come back to this chart. We'll look at it more closely, and you know, on the one hand, it's quite kind of playful, but I do also think it has its merits. And, you know, we can have a think about, is there a simpler way of showing this data? And I actually think it is actually quite effective, as well as being quite eye-catching and novel. Yeah, kind of buzzwords, but I'll quickly go through these. So I think we are kind of entering a sort of a new stage of data viz. We're seeing a lot of innovation, and that is a lot driven by the technology that there is now and some of the tools that there is. I think it's easier to be innovative than to not be using a library of set charts. Insightful, I guess that's through the fact that you can have quite high resolution charts, I suppose, that can show a lot of data. And interactivity, that's definitely something that is really changing now. I think up until, so I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, it was all in print. So now that it's on a laptop or on a tablet, especially on a tablet, it can be a lot more interactive. And again, I think I don't think we've even really started on that. Beautiful, you've probably seen the David McCandless book, Information is Beautiful. So yeah, I think there's a lot of designers are attracted to data visualization. By dynamic, I mean that these can be driven from live data, and again, that's because it can be on the web. So these can be absolutely live and up to date data visualizations, rather than something that's taken a month to produce and then to print and so on. This can be completely up to date. Ubiquitous, I mean, just about everyone you see has a mobile phone, or a lot of people have smartphones, tablets, so you can access these. You can look at the data viz on the New York Times now, whereas in the past you have to somehow find a copy of it. So there's just access to these things. By open, that's a couple of aspects. I think there's a big kind of shift towards opening data from governments and so on, and other organisations. I think the other side to this is that the tools that are being used for a lot of these data visualizations are using open tools, open source kind of libraries, but you can also kind of peek inside and actually see how these things are done. So even like on the New York Times ones, I was looking earlier today, and you can actually get the data set that's driving these visualizations. You can look at source code usually. So there's kind of that sort of openness at the moment. But I think that's driving it on, because there's a lot of, currently in the community there's a lot of sharing of examples, and you can look at what other people have done. So I think that really does drive it forwards. Whether that's something that will stay that way, I don't know. So just, I think everyone has a different maybe idea of what data visualization is or can be, and I think a good analogy is with music, and you've got all sort of different genres of music. You've got classical music on one end, which I think this is more sort of classical data viz, and then you've got jazz, rock, pop, and rap. So you've got all these different ways of approaching data viz. So you've got things like that, and then you can have this sort of thing. So I think it's worth keeping an open mind as to what data viz might be. And we'll look at this one in a bit as well. And by data visualization, I'm really thinking about visualizations that really are driven from a data set. So I'm thinking about this sort of thing where there's, it's not a particularly big data set, but it's a spreadsheet of last year's Wimbledon results, and that's driving the visualization on the right. It's not coming out all that clearly, but it will in a larger version. So I'm not so much talking about kind of infographics, which have been tremendously popular in the last few years. And there's always kind of blurs as to whether it's an infographic or a data visualization. But I'm more, I think that's what most people here are more interested in. When you've got a lot of data, you want to basically present it in a way that gives some kind of insights into it. Let's look at a few examples. So this is from the New York Times, live version here. So the data set is just the top 500 companies, and it's looking at how much tax they paid. What's it over the past few years? So each corporation or company is represented by a circle. The size of the circle is its market capitalization, so basically how big the company is, and then the further along the x-axis, the more taxes paid. So these guys here have paid over 60% tax, whereas these guys are sort of Amazon, their effective tax rate of 6%, and so on.
So the position is related to their market capitalisation versus their tax.
The position is the tax. It's only a single axis in effect.
Who's right at the end?
It's right at the end there then.
Residential effective tax rate 0%. I mean, I guess there's still.
They're going to burn in hell, aren't they?
Yeah, there's Seagate.
And this is dynamic, you say?
This one isn't. No.
Right.
No. And most of the ones, I think most of the ones I'll show you aren't, and I don't think we're quite there yet.
Right.
We're really seeing this sort of chart combined with live data. You can't see one or the other. You know, when it's live data, you tend to see more bar charts and line graphs. So the way in which this has been done, it's a mix of, it's quite sort of design led in a way.
Yeah, I would be quite impressed if that was actually dynamic generally.
I mean, there is, when you say dynamic, what?
As in like live data.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So that's not ever changing.
No, it stays the same. And then you can look at. Yeah, see. Everyone loves the animations.
Yeah.
So you can do it by sector as well. So again, it gives you a few insights. You can see IT tends to be a bit lower, and for some reason it seems to be the and so that's ranked according to the average. So we've got insurance. Yeah, and energy. So oil companies tend to pay higher rates. So, okay. This is, the colours are kind of, should be a bit more orange. But this is kind of more on the, I suppose, storytelling side of things. There's so many different aspects to these, whether they're trying to tell a story or just present data, whether they're allowed to explore, or they might try and lead you a particular way to tell you what they want to tell you. So this is more the storytelling one. And again, this is driven from real data. You can actually look at the data behind this, and it's a long list of actual statistics. It's not coming out that clearly, but we'll go on. Yeah, there we go. So this one kind of within the, I suppose, the data viz community, has become really well known. It's a really innovative chart that really kind of tells the story and has quite an impact. What they've done, they've taken statistics of gun deaths in the US, and what they've done is kind of projected them. So they've taken, say, this man who was killed when he's 37, and they kind of projected statistically say he might have lived to 81, so that's how they got
The shape of the arm.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of see that this is sort of the life that they haven't lived.
This big part of the big data that we keep hearing about.
Say again?
Big data.
I mean, I think in relation to big data, this is tiny as a data set. And I mean,
Because I would have thought, to have projected lifetime, you would need to have data collected.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know how they've done that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how they've done that actually. Yeah.
It's interesting.
So yeah, that's one that's more on the, I suppose, kind of storytelling, artistic.
That was just a screenshot, mid-animation.
This one is yeah.
Different figures.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
So what's the y-axis on that?
It isn't. But
Oh,
it's
right.
just, again, it's just linear.
Oh, okay.
In a sense. So they're just like curves between 0 years and they're projected.
Right.
Time.
Okay.
So there isn't actually, it's not. It's a sort of one-dimensional set of data. Yeah, and I think it's quite impactful. So,
I suppose if you compare the few, like you look at Dundas and Britain, you can see how the shape's different between each other, and get used the vernacular of that as a way of describing it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Maybe we compare them side by side, and just instantly look and see where there's a lot of lost years.
yeah, because you would see the difference if a lot of younger people have been shot, then the colour would be more to the left, for instance. Yeah.
It's interesting how you can just use these sort of things to put your point of view about the data across
Yeah,
in a certain way.
yeah, and this is very much
Very much designed to be anti-gun.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's right. This is something that I did a few months ago, and it's I just wanted to. I'm just interested in how the temperature has changed over the past 100 years, and so this is data from the Met Office. Data from the Met Office of UK temperature over the past 100 or so years. So obviously each line is 1 year. It'd be nice to have like a hover over so you can track each month. But each year is represented by a line. So this 2012. You can scroll through them, so you can kind of go through different years. And where you've got a year down the side, there's a bit of storytelling on what was happening, and that's kind of intense. So this is a year where there was a really hot summer, for instance.
Is there a reason for the highlighted years?
Yeah, it's where there's a bit of text on the side. So if you go to so it's a year where I think where it's red it was a particularly hot summer, and then like in 1963 there was a big chill, big freeze of 63, so it's one of the coldest winters.
That's required to be interactive almost, isn't it? This chart. I found it quite difficult to tell the difference between the years until you started going through it.
Yeah.
Then it's interactive.
Yeah. And line graphs are tricky, even if you've got, say, I don't know, 10 series. If you're plotting them on top of one another, it just becomes a mess. So it's always a challenge to
That's a good solution.
to plot them. I mean, I kind of wanted to see if you could see if there was any trend, but you can't. To be honest, you can't really. There's better ways of doing that, I'm sure. But it's kind of somewhere towards the it looks nice and quite rather than I think
It's snapshot climate change.
yeah. So I think it's fairly effective, but I imagine it's rather ways. And I've done this with a heat map as well as a massive circle. And again, it's not
Is this open data that you get
from the office. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. There's nothing I can point to it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the license. I can't scroll across on it at the moment.
And
I
what's
think
that?
there's a
What's
link.
that made with? What libraries have you used to?
So the actual output is SVG, which I'll come to. It allows you. It's similar. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the actual output, and then I'm using D3 to do a lot of the drawing. But yeah, and just a lot of custom JavaScript coding, usual front end type stuff. Oh yeah, this one is a bit more fun. I only found this because I was trying to find examples yesterday. I like this one. Music as well.
Music visualization of sound waves.
But I think they've taken the MIDI information, so once it gets going, you'll kind of see. So you'll see the actual notes. And I think they've.
One of them sound to like.
What's that?
Where you have like beat
Yeah,
and a sound sensor.
that's it. So you can see the actual. That's kind of if you put it that way.
So you can scroll around it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the height is. It might be volume, perhaps, and I guess the colour is the instrument that's being played. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's taken from MIDI data, which
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
that's,
you can see. Yeah,
So it's got a playhead.
yeah. I think these are the beats. You've got the regular beat. Yeah. I think if there is a lot of data here, and I've thought it's a lot of music myself, and I have thought about other different ways of visualizing music besides your music score that's been around for hundreds of years, and this is a way. It's good, isn't it? So yeah, a bit of it's just some really simple kind of background. I think so. What I'm presenting is just a bit of background that I use when I'm looking at data. The works that I do, there is a lot behind them, but I think there are some principles that it always boils down to, and so I think it's just useful to say this kind of helps you see how I kind of see things. So this is kind of standard computer science stuff, and I think most data, and I'd say pretty much all the visualizations you see boil down to these data structures, which are lists. That's probably 80%, 90% of visualizations you see are in effect kind of just lists of data. You see, and then so you got lists, trees, and networks. Trees are hierarchies. So a good example is directory structure, and you may have seen. You may not know that they're called this, but tree maps. So if your hard drive is kind of getting full and you want to see how it's being used, you see those sort of coloured rectangles. Yeah, exactly. And then you kind of zoom in. So that's kind of a hierarchy. And then networks is kind of one of the hot ones at the moment, which is all your social networks. So connections. So you've got people, how they're connected, and that's kind of. It seems to be something that. It's one of the
social
things.
networks.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there trying to map Twitter and networks, all that kind of stuff, and I still don't think there's a. it's quite hard to actually do it well. I think.
I always did a really good one. I don't know if it was us vs them or something, but it showed you, or we work for them, it was called. It was all the directors of all the boards of all the companies in the world, and it would show you the connections, how many of them sit on
Since they work
boards.
for.
They work for us
My
or someone, or
brothers.
you. I
My
can't
brother
remember.
did that.
No way.
That's brilliant. I'll tell him that
it's
someone's
quite
seen
old,
it.
isn't it? It's quite a few years ago, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, no. I'm getting confused. No,
Yeah.
they work for us. Is that a
I can't
graphical
remember the
one?
name. It's one. It's either.
That's the political side, isn't it? You can find
Yeah, it's not. They work for us.
Not like
It's
this.
on
We
the board
work
of
for them.
Coca-Cola and on the board of
Yeah, but that is the one. Yeah.
Schweppes and
Yeah. Okay.
and you can see everybody who's on all the different boards, and they all sort of come into view, and you can look at people, all the trees join up. And
Yeah.
it was very good.
Yeah. Did you-
Years ago or something? Yeah.
How did you find
That
that?
was a flash site.
Oh,
10
okay.
years ago.
Oh, that's not mine. Okay.
I just can't remember it now. You just reminded me we were talking about networks and how people
Yeah.
are related to each other.
Yeah. It's quite. If you, as soon as you got more than a few hundred nodes, even a couple of hundred nodes, and a lot of relationships, it's quite a challenge to actually.
Graph theory.
Yeah. So that's So I find that they're pretty much the three kind of data structures that you tend to use. So you're kind of thinking. I always, when I look at data, I always think, well, what actually is this? Usually, it starts out as being a list. Often you can kind of. There are hierarchical structures in there, or networks in there as well, and they're kind of. And I can show you that with the Wimbledon stuff that I looked at actually, because yes, it's a list of data, but there is actually hierarchies in there. And then, yeah. Yeah, and then you kind of think, well, how can data be represented on the screen? And again, it boils down to basically kind of shapes, as in different shapes, circles, squares, rectangles. If you think, well, what's a bar chart? Well, it's just a bunch of rectangles, isn't it? So the visual marks are kind of the dimensions or the parameters that you can play around with. So you've got shape, you've got size, position and colour. So again, if you think of a bar chart, that's rectangles that vary in size. Scatter plot, it doesn't matter what the shape is, but they vary in position, and that's what you're kind of encoding the data via these kind of parameters. And the reason I'm showing you this is that if you think of it this way, rather than thinking, oh, should I use a bar chart or a scatter plot, then that's where it suddenly, becomes creative, because you're no longer bound by, I don't know, 7 or 8 different chart types. You can think of data visualization as being the transformation of data into visual marks, so into shapes, colour, and so on. And I haven't actually got the book because it's about £60, but there's a book called The Grammar of Graphics, which I believe is kind of this sort of theory. It's sort of about transforming data and numbers into visual elements rather than using a library of charts. Yeah, so this is an example. So rather than thinking of this as a bar chart, well, actually it's a list of. So this is the frequency of letters in the English language, and so each bar. This way. So each letter we can represent with a rectangle, and then we'll alter its size according to the frequency. So we've created a bar chart there. Similarly, with this one that we saw before, we've got a list of companies. We've got the capitalisation and the taxes. So what we're going to do, we're going to map each of these to a circle, it will set the radius in proportion to the capitalization, and then the position of it will be set according to the taxes that they pay, and also the colour is set according to the taxes. So it's like we're not thinking of what type of plot is this, we're just going from data to kind of visual elements. Yeah, so we're not thinking in terms of bar charts and pie charts. Instead we're asking how can we transform our data into shape, size, position and colour. And what I'm talking about here is for the more kind of creative data visualization. So if you are thinking, of doing something novel and different, then this is an approach you can use. Whereas if you just want to produce a bar chart or something, then that's a lot simpler, and that's another approach. Yeah, so it helps us get more creative with data. So this leads on to something that I did, it's pretty much a year ago now. I just wanted to take a single data set and challenge myself to see how many ways it could be visualized, just as a kind of an exercise, and also just a piece for my portfolio. So I took the this is actually 2012, I've taken Wimbledon results, and the spreadsheet from tennisdata.co.uk. So it's a spreadsheet of every match from a Wimbledon tennis tournament. So there's it's either 127 or 128 matches in total, and you've got the winner and the loser, stuff like for each set you've got the score, so 6-2, 7-5 and so on. You've also got like the ATP ranking, I think that's the points, the ATP points that the winner has, and so on.
So I think you like tennis.
I'm not a huge fan. I do like it. I think it's just because it just seemed like a good. Yeah.
It's got lots of numbers.
Yeah. And I think most people can relate to it as well. And also, this is a really clean set of data, so I had to do very little sort of cleaning of it, which helps as well, because that can be kind of job.
In tennis, they're doing a lot more these days, aren't they? In the last one that I watched, there's a lot of data coming up on the screen. Missed shots, forced errors, and they're comparing them. They're doing a lot of instant live data on the screen. It's rich in data.
It's funny that
most things are, I guess, but they're definitely more so there than modern sports.
It's funny that because they do have a lot of that live data, serve speed and where the shots. But
how many?
The start of American football and all that, didn't it? Years ago when they're massive stats fans, aren't they? So the American football thing is all about stats.
Yeah.
I think it kind of started there, and then with Hawkeye and all these other things. And, it's just
something to look at in the downtime, isn't it?
Yeah. Keeps you watching. But they have all that data. But if you actually look to see what visualizations they've got of the tournament at a sort of high level, I don't think there's much out there at all. And I did search around. So if you go on their actual website, it's tables, and you are having to click through. You can get to the finals, but you're having to click through the day, and I think that's about as much as they give you. There's nothing visual.
A lot of people find that quite simplistic, and you know what day you're looking for, so you click on it and it just gives you a list.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. There's no visualization of the data. That's all. That's the stuff that is just simple.
Yeah. Well, it's useful at this point then. Okay, what sort of things would you want to know if you're watching Wimbledon and you say 3/4 of the way through? kind of things
So,
would you want to know?
number of aces,
On the basis?
which is like, great stat to
Yeah.
know, isn't it?
Per player or
Per player,
Yeah. anything? What other things? 'Cause
How many actual games they played? Was it sets they played within the game?
Injury.
Yeah, as in that might give you an idea of how tired they are by the time they hit the next match.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good one actually.
It's great for like
That's a good one.
betting organisation.
Well, that's where the data's come from.
Oh,
actually,
right.
Yeah.
live in-match betting, the trends, and
Before.
Yeah, the in-match betting has got driven a lot of stuff, hasn't it? Actually, when you think of that.
Hmm. I think this. I'm going to come on to this. I think it's one of the crucial things. I think when you are trying to design a visualization, it's what are the questions that you're trying to answer. That really is, I found really crucial. And the ones that I've created here are all driven by that. I've asked the question and thought, well, how can that be answered visually? Yeah. And a lot of these, I suppose you got two ways of doing it. You ask a question. You could write, I don't know, a macro or a bit of code to kind of do the analysis. So you could do it, but don't need analysis route. And the other way is to visualize it in a particular way that it kind of reveals that answer to you. And so, and yeah, I mean, the questions I was kind of asking. I mean, one of my favourite ones was who are the heroes of the tournament? So who of lower ranking beat a player of higher ranking? That sort of thing. I think that's questions like that. And so is it possible to be the whole tournament, at once? So yeah, this is what I've kind of found visually. It is a tree structure, so I found that online, which is quite, so this was a Google image search, so there's one where someone's filled it in by hand.
There's actually a giant wall at Wimbledon. It's on, isn't it, if you go and watch.
Oh really?
Yeah,
So
from
this is
two
kind of
miles.
an official.
Yeah, and it's huge. You can stand back and see all the results. But they have the opposite seeds. So first seed in one half. and second
Yes,
seed.
you got
So you have two trees that meet in the final.
Yeah.
So depending on what day you go, they've all been plaques around, stuck on in the right places.
Yeah.
also the pull-outs you get.
What's with the red lines around?
No idea.
Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of World Cup charts appearing in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
more stats coming in.
This is from 1877. Kind of, it looks pretty similar to that, doesn't it?
I mean, it's quite organisation, isn't it? That's a chart. They require that to understand, so you know who's playing them.
Yeah. So these some you can do. Oh no, it's not too bad, but that's meant to be a Wimbledon green. I'm not
What's that for?
I challenged myself to do 10 different ones. So I've got these 6. I'll show you a few of them. Just overviews of the whole tournament. So I've got this one here, which shows the entire tournament. So you've got, it's not coming out very nicely, but you've got the first round on the outer wheel, and so on, the second round, third round, fourth round, and then quarter, semi, and then this is the final where Murray played Djokovic, and Murray was the winner. So
really cool.
Each stage you got the two players and then the winner. So it kind of works its way in. So I suppose you've got maybe, I guess, the two halves of the seeding that you mentioned.
Yes,
I guess it's left and right. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's quite elegant.
I suppose
Trace
any
a line
any
through
kind
the
of
names.
yeah, and there's probably more interaction. I mean, I've got a really basic interaction. That's what more you can do. I just saw these just concepts. This one. I mean, to be honest, I think this one is the overview is the best one. A lot of these, I think, by the 9th or 10th, I was kind of scraping it out a bit. But even this one, so this is created for programs here. It's using D3, but it's just HTML that it's generated here. So this is again just a map of the tournament. So you've got all the matches, first round matches, in the left column, and then it kind of follows its way down to the final. But if you had a favourite player, you can kind of click on them and you can click on them and you can see what kind of highlights them. So that's really simple. It's really, really simple. Yeah, I think it gives you.
It's a good place to start, though. It starts the ball rolling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, okay, well, you can take that.
Yeah. And is that a database? Yeah. It's not.
If you squint,
It's not graphics.
if you can squint,
Yeah. I'll show you this one, which it's okay, not come out very nicely, but it's a bit more gimmicky, this one, but
Is that the Venn diagram?
yeah. So each circle, the ones that are contained by the circle are the players that they beat. So Andy Murray beat Djokovic. That's it. And Djokovic is the players within this circle, in effect. But yeah, directly he's the kind of the direct circles. And so you see Andy Murray beat Jana and so on. I think that one just sort of shows what.
Can you switch to video and written? You've done that for Murray.
Could you show?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be nice.
You do sort of show them.
Yeah.
They're all the smaller circles containing that stuff.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, all that stuff would be really nice and have a transition. Yeah,
Animation.
yeah,
so you use fish.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised now. I've just kept the interactions pretty basic just for the time. Yeah, so this is what I mentioned before. So I thought it'd be interesting, to look at results compared with ranking. So, scatter plot. At very least, you've got ranking in effect. So higher ranked players, as in the ones who've got more points and more to the right. And I compared it with games won. So you've got people you expect like Andy Murray and Djokovic. And I think it's the outliers where it gets more interesting. So you've got Roger Federer there, and Nadal as well, who kind of underperform in a sense. And then perhaps even more interesting are the ones, maybe the up and coming players. So looks like this guy Brown. I think in the next visualisation you'll see quite up. So these are the players who the ones to watch out for.
I think you put a line through to show the average.
Yeah,
linear
you sort of best fit line. Yeah, it's like which line do you choose? Because there's different ways of fitting kind of a line. But yeah, I mean, it'll be something like that, wouldn't it, I guess. I don't have a massive. I've sort of, I don't know, like GCSE level stats. I think so. I don't have a stats background so much, but
Is that what's driven you to sort of to find other ways of understanding the data?
Yeah, I guess I'm like you said, you like to see things visually, and same here. I'd much rather see this than, I don't know, work it out with some formula and it gives me a number out. It's like 1.3.
I think alignment trust, you can see who's on the
Who's
other
above it
side.
and who's under it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Maybe the range.
yeah, yeah. This is something. Yeah, it's a bit of a. So to remember this, whenever a match winner has less points than the player they defeated, they're kind of given a score, which is the difference in the respective points. So if one player who's really low ranked beats a player who's really high ranked, then that'll give them more points. So the top of the ones who are kind of really punched above their weight.
Does that marry up with the scatter?
Well, we've got this. I think it's. I can't remember, but he was there, and then Stakowski. I think. There's Stakowski. So it kind of shows you there's different measures, isn't there? That, you measure it this way, and some people come out and measure it another way, and you see different. So there's different ways of looking at it. As to who's really kind of.
So if this marries to the fact that points have been awarded to the scatter project, he's obviously getting a few points from this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You could because that one is dependent on who they played.
You've kind of seen the same names, but yeah, they're sort of in different orders. And you got Andy Murray up there, whereas he was kind of on the trend line on the scan. And then there's this one, where so the size of the circle is relative to the ATP points that they have, and then this is only displaying matches where a player of lower rankings beat a player of higher ranking, and that's the direction of the arrow. So look at, say, this guy here, he's beat, lady top the screen, but he's beat this person and this person here, and they're both high ranking. Yeah, where is he? Oh yeah, there you are. So that was a sort of shot. So I think it may have been, I think I linked through to the actual story or something. And then I guess it's people like, there was someone, again we've seen this guy before, cropping up, and you can see that he's beat these two.
Is that the magician?
Yeah, that's how he did it.
But that's really instant, isn't it? You can immediately see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting matches. So, you can't see the names. Oh yeah. So this is a little bit sort of flawed, but I just wanted to kind of look at what were the sets. Yeah, I thought, well, an interesting match is where you've had kind of it's swinging from one side to the other. So this means the result that Wang scored one more game in the first set, and then Nick scored two more games, and so on. So it's kind of.
Was that the one that went on for like 14 or 15 hours or something?
I don't know. The problem is this is flawed, because if you look at this one down here, that's Murray and Djokovic down here. So in a way, it's maybe the closer match is the more interesting one. So, but anyway, it kind of just shows there's so many different ways when you sort of set your mind to it. There's so many different ways of visualizing data.
It's a bit Tetris, isn't it?
Yeah, Yeah, you want to start moving.
So it's not by date, it just switches them all around,
Yeah.
yeah? Oh.
Yeah.
Using masonry or something for that.
D3 has
D3
the transitions in it. So it's actually one. D3 does a lot, most of the work for you, to be honest. You just need to sort them. Once you sorted them, you just tell D3, okay, I want to transition, and it'll pretty much do it for you. So I'm not, yeah, I don't want to take too much credit for the animation. So yeah, so we talked about this a bit before. What is the creative process? I think the questions is really important. You've got your data. What do you actually want to find out from it? I find a lot of people, they've got their data and they've got a visualization that they like the look of that they've seen on the New York Times, and they say, I want something like this, and this is my data. And it kind of doesn't. It's quite difficult for it to work that way. You really need to, you do need some understanding of your data and know what you're trying to get out of it. And just asking questions of it is, I think, is the first step. I like sketching things out on paper, and I think you can get a long way doing that. And you're not going to be swayed by any of the tech that's out there, or libraries and stuff. It means you can start have completely open mind as to what you might do. It's definitely worth doing. And yeah, I think with any creative process, it's that whole kind of staring at a blank page and not knowing what to do. And I mean, I think I was doing this the other day with a really small set of data. You kind of think, well, there can't be different ways of looking at this, but you just start even with a bar chart, just draw it, and then look at it and think, well, how can I improve that? Or just draw it as circles instead. Okay, what if I, instead of bars, have circles that are varying. And it's and also if you're aware of the different parameters you have, such as position and colour, you can think, well, what could I make the colour depend on? Is there any other data there that I could start using? And then this, feeds into what the tools are. So most of what I've been doing so far has been using I'm only really talking about browser-based visualization. So mostly it's using SVG, which is similar to HTML, but it's for drawing shapes like rectangles and circles, and also more complex shapes. Canvas is also a possibility, and what I find that if it's going to be something that you want to be interactive and doesn't have millions of elements, then SVG is usually the way to go. Whereas Canvas is, and it's called Canvas because it is more like applying paint. Once you kind of put it down, it's there. You can't really, you have no further interaction with it. And so the gun deaths visualization is using, as far as I know, it's using a canvas element. So you've got that more sort of.
You see it being created.
Yeah. Because it's pretty obvious to us, isn't it? But I know it's I'm just kind of wondering how. Whereas the New York Times ones were using SVG, especially when you can hover over all that kind of stuff, which you can do on Canvas, but you kind of get all that free with SVG. Pretty much, if there's any interaction or animation, there's going to be JavaScript behind it, and D3 is behind all of these. You can go onto the website and see loads of examples created using D3. It's very much a library that's for pretty experienced programmers. So it's it's powerful, but it comes with quite a learning curve. But it's yeah,
Which is what put me off a little bit, because
yeah,
I'm not going to commit to learn
Yeah,
all this
absolutely.
stuff to produce something
Yeah.
unless I'm going to go on and do more with it.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And it's I think there's pretty much no. I think with D3, there's pretty much no limit as to what you can achieve with it, because it doesn't really put any bounds on what you can do.
There are some sort of abstraction libraries, aren't there?
There are.
That got a lot of tool sets and maps for you.
Yeah. On top of D3, you
Top
mean?
of D3,
Yeah,
yeah.
there are. If you're looking at, and then there's Raphael and Snap SVG, which is sort of the modern version of Raphael. Also, I mean, I've used them once or twice for visualization, so they're worth looking at. And they kind of work more how you expect, as it draw a circle over here and over here. Yeah, it's what you expect. Whereas D3 it's kind of, you're not
Is
really
D3
saying-
more of a toolkit, whereas Raphael is just a way of translating?
It's
Machine code and assembly code.
Yeah.
So if you use Raphael, you say A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
yeah.
Put that there, whereas D3 more of a case of these are the things you can use. You can put them in at any time. And use that.
It is very much a toolkit. It has a lot in it, but also its way of working is kind of, it's all about, you've got data, you are binding it to SVG or even HTML elements.
Right.
You kind of say that's what I'm doing, and it will do the work for you, creating the elements.
Right.
That's kind of what it's doing. So you're not really directly saying, I want to draw
You don't know
forward
what's going to
here.
happen.
You're saying, I've got this data and I'm mapping it to DOM elements.
Right. Okay.
So that's its philosophy.
I was going to say something else.
There's worth looking at, but these are sort of pretty much on the cutting edge. Reactive.js is definitely, even just to pop onto their website and look at the examples and see how they're coded up if you're a developer. And I've not looked at it in detail, but it looks really interesting. Variants is something that I only came across yesterday.
SVG.
Yes. Yeah. Variants looks interesting. So these are kind of more, they're a bit more like writing markup to produce visualizations. How they cope with them coding up interaction, I'm not sure. I think it may, I don't know, there might be a limit there, I'm not sure. And then Vega, which I think would be a quick example of, again, is more of a sort of declarative, this is my data, and I want to kind of, it's not so much a traditional programming language.
Configuration.
It's a bit, it is, have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, it is, it's more like, it's, in fact, I think it's JSON. It's like, it's more through configuration. That's absolutely it. I think I'll look at that in a minute. But it's what, this is it here. Yeah, so, who's heard of Tableau? So Tableau is sort of,
Expensive.
yeah, exactly.
I think it's £2,000 for a license.
Yeah, they don't even put a price on the website.
I've seen the price.
Oh, okay. How much?
Single user license.
How much?
£2,000
Yeah.
for
12 months. That's
That's
pretty,
very
isn't it?
impressive.
Yeah. But again, it's quite a commitment. I think you can get a 30-day trial, but also
I'm not sure. It's probably.
and up to around about now, I think it's PC only, Windows only as well, but I think a Mac version is coming as well. But they do have an online version, which again is probably worth looking at. So I think it's pretty flexible. So it's sort of, I guess if you're used to using Excel and you really wanted to go on to the next level, and your business can afford it, then it's worth looking at. I've never used it. So it does look like people are the open source community is doing similar sorts of things. So this raw
So what is Tableau? Is that like a library? Is it?
No, it's a
Commercial products.
yeah,
for data visualization.
it's a desktop. It's a desktop application in effect. So you load in your data, and it just allows you to manipulate the data, clean it, I believe,
And they have like a specification, so the data has to be like this for it to work.
I think it's kind of like it gives you a library, but I think it's more flexible than that, isn't it? It's somewhere between being a library, but also being able to customize, do customized charts within it. But I expect that a lot of analysts would use it. Again, you could justify the
afford it.
cost. Yeah, exactly.
New York Times probably use it. Maybe. Just guessing.
I don't know. I know
Well, they could afford it.
I'm not sure they do actually, but yeah.
That's a kind of organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd expect them. Yeah, you'd expect them to use it.
Does it come with like an asset library, like all the countries and maps ready made for you?
Probably.
What are you paying for?
Yeah, it's I think it is good.
Software.
It is. Business intelligence and analytics, that sort of thing.
Buy.
Yeah, so it's allowing you
Oh,
to
you
do.
just do a free trial.
Yeah, but there is an online version which you can
Yeah.
just go on. But bear in mind that anything you do on this is public, so you don't put your secret data on that. Yeah.
That's the free
sort of
trial.
cloud-based solutions are going to be predominate over desktop solutions.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know really, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. No, I think there's.
Is Tableau owned by Google?
No,
No,
they're
based in
they're
Seattle.
independent actually.
Based in Seattle.
I think they recently. Yeah. It's the cost that puts me off, and also just that ongoing cost. Because I've kind of been there before with other packages where you buy it and then you realise you need to then upgrade it or your license fee expires, all that.
So just take the pain out of the program.
Well, so I mean,
It's like a templated approach.
But if you then want it online and want it exactly how you want it, because there's one of the well-known sort of designer or developer, Moritz Stefano, and he does some brilliant stuff. He works for Tableau initially, but then he codes up in. He's using D3 now, but he used Flash as well. He was Moritz Stefano, so he used Flash a lot. But yeah, he used Tableau as the initial stage for the analysis, so you get the data and then analyze it using something like Tableau. But there's things like ARM out there. Did you mention that?
Start with
Yeah. So that's for the analysis side. Something a tool like R is popular, and Python programmers is pandas. So yeah, I'm sure Tableau is brilliant, but I kind of, it costs me out. But there are people working on open source things, which is this. I'll put my slides out there so you can get all these links in raw density design, which is open source, so you know, and it's free to use. You can even download it and put it, run it locally. So you kind of. And the funny thing is that they don't put standard charts like Instagram or something else. I did do one with the card, so you can kind of choose your chart.
Someone showed me that cluster.
Where's that?
On the left, second one down.
So this the whole thing is like, but it's just. I think that's
It's a hierarchy one.
yeah.
Are those
Yeah.
names standard names for the types of charts
Yeah,
there?
this is implemented using D3. So these, but yes, I think they are pretty much standard names.
Obviously, I was
can then come down here and like, okay, how do you want them to be clustered? I think I did it by cylinders. And so you end up with. So this is something that's only been around a couple of years. So I'd be interested to see where it goes. But it is open source that depends on people actually contributing to it.
So this looks like a good tool for prototyping.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I've not done that myself, but I would like to try it. As I say, I still think a lot can be done with pen and paper. But maybe once you've got an idea and you want to try it out for real, then there's only circles you want to draw. Yeah, absolutely, and that's really the idea. You can say like the economy to relate to the size. And label. Oh yeah, let's be. Yeah, the only thing is I'm not sure which is whether these are more cylinders or whatnot, but you sort of get the idea. You can then pass the SVG there that you can then take away. Yeah. So that gives you an idea of maybe where it's heading. This Vega is interesting as well because that, like Ali said, it's sort of driven by a configuration file. So I'll get a simple one up. And again, it's the same people involved with this. It's sort of people involved with D3 created this. So simple bar chart, you've got your data there. So nowhere does it actually say this is a bar chart. So this is using that kind of approach of mapping data onto marks. And I think, it's using those marks. So it's saying, I want rectangles. I haven't used this particularly, so I don't know exactly how to work it. But you can't say whether you want your x value to be whatever, say the width. It's going to be constant. Y, it's relating it to the y value, which is that. This is quite good because you can kind of go in and let's do this.
Green doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, does it? Yeah, so that's and I think again it's worth looking at. I'm always a bit nervous with things like this. It's like, is there a limitation to it? And
they find out
yeah, exactly. And that's why I like to use D3 because I kind of know there's not going to be that limit.
Is that a standard data format?
No, it's their own one. Very interesting question.
Jason,
It is JSON, but you mean the actual way it's structured?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just for this. There is something, I was again, I came across something yesterday, it might be called chart JSON or something, but it's on IBM site. Yeah, but it's the only place I've seen it, so. Again, it's vaguely based on the book I mentioned, Grammar Graphics, as well. So. But no, I don't think it's a standard. And whether that's what they're aiming at, I'm not sure. And then, I just thought it is worth mentioning because it's good. Sometimes you've got to kind of put your feet back on the ground and remember that sometimes.
500k worth of library.
Yeah, and your client just wants a bar chart or whatever. I do hear good things of high charts. I've not used it myself, but it seems to, I've spoken to clients who have used it and they've achieved good things with it. And the only thing with it is that it'll get you something up and running really quickly, but again, as soon as you say I want the tooltip to work in a slightly different way, then you've got to kind of delve in.
Zoom into a month and
Yeah. Yeah, so you can get a certain way with customization. It is open source, but there's a license fee if you use it commercially. But yeah, as soon as you want more customization, you have to delve in, and then your progress will slow down.
We use it where I work
Yeah,
quite a lot.
yeah,
It's quite good because they have a lot of demos.
yes.
James Fiddle style
Mm.
site, so you can kind of hack on the demos and just fiddle and change things.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find those services perfect?
Yeah. When it's used for bar charts and pie charts and things like that. It's kind of standard.
Does it support transitions or animations?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any. We have kind of hover and
That's
yeah.
right off the flop.
Yes. Yeah, I've used Flock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used Flock. Yeah. I think Fusion Charts is similar. Google Charts, yeah. There's Flock.
Crossover D3.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. I looked at it seriously, but it's still too heavy.
Okay. It's built on top of, it's a library built on top of D3. So, in a sense, it defeats the object of using D3. But it's fairly well respected. But to be honest, if in a commercial environment, and it needs to be slightly more than just a simple bar chart with a bit of interaction, and something like high charts is probably the way. As I say, that there's people like the BBC and The Economist, people like that are using it. So it's, but this is the thing. If you did want to be more creative, then this isn't the way to go.
But when you say you want to be more creative, is that when you buy on the skills of people who know what they're doing with the tools that are available?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and I don't know if it'll ever become something that people are trying to write software that will allow you to do that, as you've just seen. And I don't know. It'll take you so far.
It's like Photoshop is a great graphics package, but unless you know what you're doing in it, it can take you a good week to do something which can take
Oh
15
yeah,
minutes.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, something like D3 it's quite a different mindset. So it's and you again when people have got stuck on it, it's usually because they've kind of started off on the wrong footing and yeah. So these are some good resources. Data Stories is a podcast. I enjoy listening to it, but if you follow through to see who they've interviewed, then they're good people to then investigate. So that's what I put there up at the top, because from there I think pretty much, or maybe that's just because I listen to it, so maybe that's what I think is that it covers everything that's out there. The Y-axis is a nice website that gives a bit of some kind of in-depth analysis into why some visualizations work and why others don't. Visualizingdata.com is a website by a guy called Andy Kirk, who's UK based, and he does a lot of training. But this is his blog, and he's a good writer, and he's always linking to other people. And then these names I've got here as authors, they're definitely worth checking out. They've got some good books out, especially the first and the last one for the more sort of creative side of things. They're worth looking at. Medra Tufte has been writing about this for decades now, and it tends to be a bit more about sort of print visualizations, but he's kind of one of the more well-known authors who's been around a long time. And Stephen Few is more kind of more about keeping it simple. If all it needs is a bar chart, then just use a bar chart. He's definitely worth checking out, and his website has got a huge amount of resources where he's taken a visualization there and kind of explained, well, why have they done it this way, a bit more effectively using whatever bar chart or line chart. So he's good if you want to kind of stay grounded, but if you wanted to do more kind of wacky stuff, then don't read him. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks for listening. And yeah, I'm starting up a database meetup in Brighton, and I think I've just realised this clashes with this in 2 weeks' time. So I apologise for that.
Let's spread the love. That's not a problem.
So yeah, so that will be the very first meeting of that. And I think there's been a few signed up already, so anyone who's interested, then yeah, check it out. So yeah, any questions?
I've got a couple. One of them is about process, and one of them is like
Yeah.
hardcore reality example.
Yeah.
The process one is there a lot of crossover between UX
Yeah.
practices?
Yeah.
So you were talking about the creative
Yeah.
process, and user experience is all about personas and understanding who you're trying to communicate with
Yeah.
to get them to interact with your data.
I think it's a huge amount. I haven't really engaged with the UX community so far, but yeah, the more I do this, the more I realise a lot of it is UX. But there is also that, where this is different, there's that data element, so you kind of also need to understand how data works and the structures.
Because I always get the overriding feeling that user experience people, there's almost like a phobia to get involved in the development side of the computers, the technology aspect,
Yeah.
to delivering a solution.
Yeah.
It's almost a case of, oh no, we'll do the analysis of what people want and then hand it over to someone like you to deliver an interactive interface
Yeah.
that people can use. I just find that very hard. It's like there's this phobia of technology,
Well, it's
but
quite
an
hard to
understanding of
specify
people.
the user experience of an interactive data visualization without knowing what that visualization is.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of people aren't able to visualize that visualization without something like to consult with throughout
Right.
the process. I would have thought, being involved in the process for
Yeah.
this data means nothing to people at this plan. We want to improve the UX of the data, so we need data visualization, which could end up making it even more unless they have the process done together.
My second question, or my practical question, was the difference between Raphael and D3. So there's quite a substantial. Could you maybe bring up an example? I don't know if you can.
Yeah. I mean, so they're both.
So I've used Raphael,
Yeah.
but I've not used D3. I'm just curious as to where is the shift between
Yeah.
each one?
Sure. So I mean, they're both.
Because they're both very popular.
Yeah, and they both work with SVG.
Yeah.
Basically. So Raphael is a drawing package. So it's you know that. So it's all about kind of I want to put a circle.
For my
here,
example,
here, and
what
here.
I did, I got a map of the British Isles
Yeah.
with all the counties.
Yeah.
And basically you can hover over each county, it'll highlight the county, you click on the county and it'll stay highlighted, and then pick another one. So basically you can pick counties.
Yeah.
So D3, what that has.
So D3, there's a much closer relationship between your actual data, and it's an array of, usually it's an array of objects. So say you've got a list of cities, so it's a much closer relationship between those and the whatever you are using to plot them. And one of the crucial things it does is it's got kind of a data join. So any data that you've got, say it's a map and you've got a list of cities, and each city has got data related to it, such as the population, maybe the sort of political party that is government, that kind of stuff. So what D3 does is it kind of sticks that on each of the DOM elements, so that data is available. So So if you then say wanted to size a circle,
So you can nest data.
it's attaching it to each DOM element. Yeah, it's kind of nested. Yeah. Which means that if you then want to say change the radius according to the population, it's pretty much a one line. Just say because the data is kind of sitting on each circle. I mean, I worked on visualization recently, and they wanted IE8 support, so we ended up using Raphael for it. I thought that would be painful, but actually it was absolutely fine. It was kind of a radial bar charty type thing with layers on it, and it was fine.
Sort of brings me to my stealth third question.
Yeah.
Was all the stuff we've seen at the moment is you have to view it in a web browser.
Yeah.
You can't export it into PowerPoint or whatever technology people prefer to use.
Yeah.
It has to be in a web browser.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the stuff we've been looking at. Yeah. So I've had clients do screen grabs in order to stick to a PowerPoint.
So what would be the sweet spot then between if someone was used to using PowerPoint?
Yeah.
There's got to be like a switch over where you can do something within a browser, and then you can incorporate all these browser-based solutions.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's on there. Talk next week.
I don't know if you can embed.
Talk.
Do you not embed web
Flash.
pages with Yeah.
Bring back that. So where I work, I work on projects where people want email reports. So they're rendering D3 charts on the server. Well, just as HTML, but they want to do PDFs as well. I'm not sure if they do PDF. Yeah, that's the thing that they can.
Is it a case people want both worlds? They want the standard PDF output as well as the dynamic interface output, so they can cover all the data all the time.
Yeah, I guess people see a nice chart or data visualization in the app, which has all of the menus and columns that they want to be able to kind of email it. So you email that to you. That's just user stupidity, isn't it?
Send us a link.
The whole point
It's
is that you can explore data. I mean, I would never spend that much time looking at that tax breakdown of companies. And but when you see like that, you want to see who the big seller is, you want to see who the far right is, you want to see who the far left is.
I think,
That playing with data is what makes the data engaging and makes people connect.
it's about scanning the data quickly.
PDF is just you reckon the whole essence of the beast.
And it will go into someone's email box and they'll never read it.
Yeah. Whereas if you'd have given them a link to the chart, they could have played with that and they would have found it engaging.
Do you have that problem at all? People you work with say, I'll keep printing that off.
It's like I mentioned. Yeah, and it tends to be more corporate clients. They still, they are putting a kind of a different.
It's a culture.
Yeah, it's a different culture.
You're going to get early adopters and people right at the end of the scale that says, well, could you send it in tabular format, please? Still get that.
And I'm a little bit surprised that it's still like that. I think, iPads seem to be, and tablets seem to be adopted pretty well. I think. And they have changed this sort of thing.
People are also changing defensively with their position, security.
Yeah.
Well, people are a lot more sensitive about the data as well. If they're going to put something on the internet, they're thinking it is publicly accessible.
I normally analyse that.
Whereas if you email someone a PDF document, they can
There
print
is-
it off.
there
I
is
think that's
that,
a lot more
actually,
security involved in that.
But that's the huge thing that you're saying, because that's the whole kind of how everything is becoming owned by the masses, isn't it? And it's not corporate HQ saying you will look at this. It's users going, we can get anything.
Yeah, exactly. Change the emphasis ourselves. It's pretty like this. We look at it in a different way rather than the only way we're showing it.
I suppose there's a great temptation by corporates to skew the data as well.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. So this sort of gives you the ability to skew it your way.
Yeah, like the gun thing. That was one way of doing it. Yeah.
It's not the Rifle Association.
Yeah, the Rifle Association would do a very different job.
Yeah, I would have made the gun desk down there with the profits.
They wouldn't use red for
But
stuff.
because it's to interpretation.
Yes.
There's no
How many criminals have been that have gone?
quango or whatever you want to call it that would go, oh no, that's not representation. That's not clear representation. You know, you have skewed it.
It's like, it's the same writing, isn't it?
Editorial.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the same. Yeah.
It's like the Daily Mail version and the Guardian version.
Yeah. So you may think on one level, it's presenting the data to you, but most of them will be skewed in some way.
All right, everyone.
Hey.
I think we. Thank you. It's very good.